I remember that when my grandma asked me, what career do you want to pursue? And I told her journalism, and she said like,
don't you want to eat?
Exactly. And I
and
was
pay
like,
for
oh.
rent? The other day I sat down with Mary so we could chat a little bit about our writing process. Not only how we use our journalistic approach with our scripts and blogs, but more importantly on how you can use it in your writing process. So sit down, relax, take your notes, and enjoy our writing talk. The thing that's so beautiful about journalism and writing is that the writing process is unique to each individual. Like, if you can write on one end, on one style, I can have a completely different approach. And of course, what we'll write and what we'll create is going to be different, but maybe it's going to be similar. Okay, it's an essay, it's a blog, it's a script, and the process is completely different, but the result's not that much. So I really want to know more about, okay, how do you start, for example, the research process? Because usually before writing an essay or whatever it is, you need to do research on the topic that you are going to write about. So how do you start that particularly?
Well, I think that first you have to think about what you're going to write about. And once you have clear what you want to write about and talk, I ask the very same question in Google, and I start searching for the most important information, read articles, look for important sources and data. And after that, and reading all of that information, I get to collect all of that information and start writing.
But how many Google tabs do you open? Like when looking for this information?
I don't go to the second page.
Okay. Still the first page has plenty. Like, it's not the same to say, okay, 2 or 3 than 6, 10.
Yeah, like you have to see several pages to have complete information, because if you only base on 2, it's like that doesn't make any sense.
Well, do you know what I love? This like Google feature. I was going to say new. It's not new. Oh, I'm so old. This I think it's called a featured snippet. You're looking for maybe if it's a specific question, then you get related questions to that topic. So from there, maybe you start asking yourself questions that maybe initially you didn't have. And out of nowhere, like, oh, okay, I want to know about this, and all of those questions really build and help you with the topic that you want to cover.
Yes, and how's your process by researching?
For me, I do that, especially first of all, I try really thinking about, okay, what questions do I have about this topic? About, for example, if it's an essay, I think maybe if it's up for a particular class, but let's say it's something, okay, free, and that I can choose something random. Okay, maybe I think, what do I want to write about that really interests me? It depends on the length, on everything else, but at the core, I really need to be invested in what I'm going to write about, because that's how I know I'm going to
do a good work. Because if it's not interesting to you, it's like very hard to write something.
Super hard.
I mean, we do it because sometimes you have to do it even if you don't like it. But you can notice when you like a subject and when you don't.
Oh, for sure. I mean, writing about things or topics that you are not that into it's impossible to avoid, whether you're in college or work. It's impossible to avoid again. But when you have that opportunity, or maybe if it's within a topic that you can get to choose something that you are interested in, it's like, oh, okay, what do I need? For example, if I need to write about this, I think, okay, what questions do I have about this topic? And I start asking myself these questions that on 90% I can't answer, because of course have to do with actual information and data that I don't have. But also like to think, okay, what if I was like really invested and I had to do was related with the topic? For example, once I wrote a topic on the wage gap.
The what?
The wage gap between men and women. On how much they earn. And like, again, this is a super broad topic, and every time that you need to write something, an essay, you need to be specific. The more specific you are, the easiest it's going to write, to write something about that, because you can't, like, you know what you're going to write. And to look for sources, for information, you know exactly.
Facts, data, important sources, that will make your text or blog or whatever you're writing be important or considered as something valuable.
Exactly. So
because if it's just about opinions or feelings, it doesn't make any sense.
No, and not only opinions, but especially when you're writing we're focusing on academic writing, opinions don't have that much space unless, it's someone super important and you're writing maybe about topics that are more subjective, like philosophy or something like that. But if you're writing about something factual, about factual and strong and solid information, you do need to go, to that specific data. And again, so the more specific topic that you find, the better and the easiest also it's going to be. Because again, it's super easy. I have to write something on the wage gap, so I try to niche it down to, only in Florida, for example. Only Florida there, because niche it down to only one state, that really helps to, now I know that I need to have this information, because the whole data that you can find on the entire world and the entire America, it's a lot. And how do you focus? What do you want to focus on? If one state, it has one condition, in two others it's different, and in some others it's the whole opposite, like knows what can you actually do. So let's now only focus on this. So the first questions start to show up. How is it now? How was it 10 years ago? Is any policy that's being implemented right now to change it? Yes, no, why? Was there any that was debated on Senate?
A lot of questions. Ask all the questions that
all
you
the
can.
Questions that show up initially. You're not going to get the full list of questions that you can ask. That's when Google comes in.
What do you think is the most difficult thing about writing for you?
For me, because again, I'm going back to I'm going to explain you real quick. My writing process is first this brainstorming, have all the questions, then the research. And in this brainstorming is where I get what's like the thesis statement for the essay. This is the main question that I want to answer. If I'm writing about the wage gap, in Florida, I'm going to say, what needs to be done to help it and to avoid and to improve it. That I know that's going to be my thesis statement. Now I need, of course, the answer, because I have the question. Now I need the answer. So that's when the research kicks in. So once I have that thesis statement, I just, again, go to Google and ask that question there and start looking into the different, not only the featured snippet, but also the different results that I see. I usually use between 3 and 4 search terms to have a broader match of results that Google can give me. And from there, I start reading. I don't read it entirely. I first skim through it and I see, is this worth it? Yes. So I leave it open. If I don't see it's not, I close it down. Once I have this 15 pages open that I have already skimmed through them, that's when, now I'm going to start reading them. And the best tip that I can give to anyone is to use the Google search feature and to start looking for the actual keywords that you are looking for, because that way you can really save you out. That can truly, it has helped me plenty of time, millions, hundreds of time with, I need to write something on the wage, or maybe, and not maybe on the year, on statistics, something like that. Maybe it's just raw. I search for the percentage icon, and that here you have all the percentages, and or maybe the year that started with in 20 something, or if it was on last century that starts with 19. So it's that's how you get to narrow down and really find faster everything. So again, that's where I find all the information, and now I have all the data that I want to use, and I have a full picture of everything. I create my outline. I have all the information, and I basically write it all down and order it. First I'm going to talk about this, then this, then this, then this, then this, then this. And when that outline is when the hardest part for me starts, that's writing.
Right.
Of course, if you have this outline, it's super easy to start writing because you know where to start.
Yes,
and
because you have everything organized. It's not like having a blank
page. Yeah, and most importantly, especially when writing essays or any type of content, you have your sources. You have the actual information, so you already have it there. If in this second paragraph I'm going to talk about last statistics. Okay, awesome. I already have that here. And if later I'm going to talk about the policies, I have that here as well. So you have both the information and the source that you, of course, super important, you have to credit. So from there, it's an easier journey, a process. This doesn't mean it's something, oh, okay, I did it in 1 hour. No. Especially maybe, and something for me at least, what's the most challenging part is when you actually get to choose more sources than the ones that you need, or you have more information than the one that you need to include.
But that's better than having no information.
Yeah, of course, like by far. But then when you get to a point where, okay, what information do I want to include? What information I'm going to exclude from here? Maybe there is something like there are two different sources of information that are tied together, and you only have to use one because you don't have space or like word length to include both. So you need to think, okay, why? Is there any way that I can include both? And I think that's the process that for me is the most challenging one, and it's the one that can take the longest time for me. As you said, it's better to have more than fewer. 100% agree. But, I'm also, it's something that sometimes happens. It's not every time. Okay, if it's a 1,000 words essay, that with 5 sources you have a solid start, or we're okay. And if you have 10, you have way more than what you need. Depends on how you use them, but overall, at least on how I like using them, I think, again, if it's 1,000 words, 6, 7 maybe, because I also like really using, if it's a piece of information that I like, that I think it's valuable, I just use it. Even if it's just 1% or like 1 line, I use it because it's valuable. Of course, there are other times where one source has like paragraphs and paragraphs of super valuable information. So that's when it's super hard for me to choose, okay, but what actually here do I need to include, and from what other source can I take a similar information that can be better?
I think the hardest thing for me when writing is when you have like too many blogs to write, and I'm not really fast at writing. It's like I need time. I feel like I need to be like more calm, and that gives me anxiety. I think that's the most difficult part for me.
And how do you overcome that?
Crying.
It just works. I mean that helps.
No, I'm lying. I don't cry. But it's like I tend to procrastinate. It's like, how do I can concentrate to get this like really fast? It's difficult. Journalism tend to have this rhythm that doesn't go with, okay, take it slow with the creativity. It's like, no, you have to go like one and another, and that tends to be the most difficult part for me.
No, it's super difficult.
But doing this process that you said is what makes it easier, because if you do the research and organize the outline and have your ideas clear, then when you are going to write, it's easier than just start writing from nowhere.
But you know what? It's not a guarantee. Like, you can follow my process and any process your own, and that's not a guarantee that maybe you have this outline, you sit down in front of the computer like, okay, I'm going to write, and nothing, and your brain is empty.
Yes, and most of those times you have to be like, okay, I don't have to be so hard on myself. I have to like, okay, just relax. Maybe I'm not feeling it right now. Let me take 2 hours. I'll come back later. And when you take that time to rest, all the ideas tend to appear.
Exactly. I think it's really easy, like, force oneself to, okay, I really need to write here, and maybe you spend 4 or 5 hours being completely dull and kind of, okay, like, it's really hard, and you end up writing 1 or 2 pages, and maybe from those 4 or 5 hours, you give yourself 2, 3 hours to rest and to do something else, and then you come back, and in 1 hour, you end up doing exactly, and even with higher quality than what you would have done with those 4 hours of, okay, I really need to force here because I have this deadline. Of course, it really depends on how you manage your time, but that's why I think it's super important to always have the entire picture of everything that you need to do. That's why when it comes down to writing. Okay, that I first like to know the first thing, like even if I have a 1 week deadline, in that first day, I'm going to do 80% of the work on doing the research and writing the outline.
Like start with the hardest part.
Exactly, because then I know that once with that, which I think is the most important part of writing, you know that you sit down and you write. And once you feel that, okay, it's going to be easier now because you know I feel comfortable knowing that I have everything I need. It's not like I need to do more research.
Exactly. You have everything.
I already have everything. So it's now up to me, which
words you're going to use and how to explain it, but you have the important information.
Again, even though you can, it's like trusting entirely on myself, which is not always the best because you don't always feel like writing. You just don't. But again, that's why I like doing the hardest part or the most important part first. So then I know how to leverage my time. I like, maybe I know that first day I did it. Maybe in 2 days I come back and try to write and I can't. Okay, I can give myself one more day of rest because I already know that. And I think that helps a lot when it comes down to writing.
And talking about time, that takes us to the editing part, that is really important part. And maybe the final part. Because you said also that maybe you're trusting in yourself, but also when you finish your writing, the last step is to edit your work, to check all the typo mistakes, grammar mistakes, and then you proceed to verify if the ideas have sense between each other. But then you can pass your text to a second person, and they can read it and see if it actually makes sense.
No, I think it's amazing that you bring this whole editing aspect to the conversation because I think it's what most people or students don't do. Like they forget about editing, or maybe they like, okay, I'm going to skim through this piece of content or essay that I just wrote. And it's like, it's super important. And that's where not only about grammar mistakes, because I think those with different apps that you like, for example, Grammarly or something else, that's super easy to fix right now, especially if you are correcting yourself as you write. That's something easy. I think now what's super important is to realize and to pay attention to rhythm, to pace.
That the ideas are core.
Yes, they are cohesive. And that I think that you only get it once you finish writing, once you have the whole paper. That's when you get it.
And that takes time. I mean, you can't like finish writing and immediately start editing. No, you need like to pause.
Leave it rest.
Exactly.
Sleep on it.
And then return the next day when you already separate your mind from the text and you can read it as a third person.
Exactly. I really like that tip of giving what you just wrote to somebody else, like to see and give you feedback on that. Like, hey, is this part too long? Is this information important? But also, let's be honest, it can kind of suck to show something that you just wrote to somebody else, and maybe they don't want to write a 5-6 page essay. I mean, if a friend came to me and like, hey, can you please read this? I would read it, but maybe I wouldn't pay that much attention. A few years ago, we reviewed and we used this app, Pigify, it's a great text-to-speech converter. And a few weeks ago, we also tried it again for a new review. And it's even better, and it's great how it improved on everything. The voices are better, and you basically can give what you wrote to this app, and you can hear it out loud from a voice. They have different voices. You can, we have a separate review on that. You can watch that later. But I think it's a great option for actually, okay, I'm going to listen what I just wrote without actually having someone else involved. And something else that usually happens, you finish writing like 2 or 3 a.m. Like midnight, like everyone is sleeping. There is nobody there if you reach out to a friend.
Yeah, or you can give it to someone that you like their point of view. Like, you know, that they know how you think and they can understand your words. So you can give it to them and they will think like, oh, okay, I can understand it. This is well explained.
Someone who is going to criticize you.
Exactly.
A lot.
That is like no scared of telling you, of being honest with you.
Yeah, like, hey, this introduction sucks. Like, the information is great, it's nice, this intro just sucks. And the conclusion is just a paraphrasing of the introduction. It's the same thing said with different words. You really need to change it because it sucks. And that's super helpful. One final tip for this whole editing, I think can be, and this is something that really depends on how you use it, ChatGPT. And again, to continue using AI. I'm not the biggest fan of AI, but I think on how you can use it right now, it has really changed. One amazing tip is to treat this like AI as a real person. Like, hey, ChatGPT, how are you doing? That's super scary, but it's crazy how it really works, and it makes a huge difference on the result that you later have. But like, can you please review this essay I wrote down? Please pay attention to grammatical mistakes, tone, rhythm, and give me a feedback on it. And you then paste what you wrote. And it's scary how sometimes ChatGPT can give you like ideas on, okay, this was great and I really like it, but it can be, you can write more on this specific subject and topic. And the reason I mainly recommend this, it's because it's super fast and easy to do. Like, again, you copied it and maybe later you have like this prompt that you copy and paste as you continue writing different things. And like, okay, and then you just change the actual content of what you wrote. But then what you can get can be valuable. And at least it deserves your attention.
Yes.
If you like it, amazing. If you don't, you are not losing anything.
Yeah,
and that's work.
That's really great. I think that we talk about writing, research, editing.
I don't know, Mari, if you have anything else to include or to say.
No.
No, I think that was pretty much it. Mari, thank you very much. And we'll see you on the next conversation whenever that moment comes in.